Welcome to the Learning Can't Wait podcast, a Full Mind production. At Full Mind, our vision is to ensure every child has access to an exceptional education. Each episode, we will be joined by pathfinders within and around the education space who are bringing about transformational change on behalf of deserving students. I am your host, Haley Spierbauer. Welcome back, everybody, to the Learning Can't Wait podcast. I am so incredibly honored that we were able to secure time with this incredible guest. We have Dieumerci Christel coming on from this as the CEO and founder of the EnlightApp. We are so excited you're here, DM.
I am so excited that I'm here too, Haley. I mean, we've been trying to find time and here we are finally. We get to do this.
Let's talk about why this was even more exciting because I think that's a large part of what made the scheduling process difficult. So, a couple months ago, Rita Ferrandito, hello, Rita, introduced the two of us. But soon after, Forbes listed you and your app as a 30 under 30 recipient. Congratulations, DM.
Wow, yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, it's been such a honor to just be able to be recognized on, such a like a list that has, like really shows how like that it's been an honor to be able to be on a list that really shows the young people in North America that are really spearheading like innovation. For me, coming from where I come from and like working how hard I've been working to, to do this work, it's honestly very refreshing to be able to be recognized by Forbes. And I'm been taking it in still, like, so it's been a really, really good end of the year going into this year. So yeah, just really looking forward to the momentum and the many other doors that this is going to open for us.
And I think we'll get into a little bit of what doors it already has opened and what it will continue to open in a moment. But again, just to put a fine point on it, thank you for making time to come on the Learning Can't Wait podcast and talk to us about what you're building, why you're building it, and tell your story. So we're going to jump right in with the first question, DM, which is how did you come to be the personal and professional version of yourself?
Yeah, I came to become the professional and personal version of myself through, I believe a story that like, I've been living for the past, well, now I guess 27 years. Um, but to me, the biggest inspiration came from like school, where I met educators that just honestly made such a big impact on my life. I think a lot of teachers that go into education, they go into it because they also had someone like I had that made an impact on them. I feel like a lot of teachers though usually go the teaching route where they become an educator or somewhere in that profession. I chose to go more on the tech route where I was like, instead of just becoming an educator, how can I help teachers? And so I've dedicated a huge part of my professional career really working alongside teachers to figure out how I can help build their capacity to do what they go into teaching to do, which is impact and connect and ignite the minds of the young people that they're working with who have unlimited potential.
I love that. So you had people that believed in you and that helped you through your education, but also find your path forward. Tell us about Enlighten and why you think educators today need a tool like this to help develop empathy and the what people call soft skills in kiddos.
Yeah, I would, like to start that by really kind of prefacing to, where this whole I believe like philosophy for me started to form. I was born and raised in a refugee camp in Tanzania. My family are Congolese, and so for many of the people listening, it is like one of those countries that's been, at war with itself and the neighbors for the past maybe, my whole life really, and before I was even born. So, being born in a refugee camp, you already kind of are born feeling like you don't belong, right? I'm Congolese, born in Tanzania. And so like you always kind of already feel like an outsider in a way. But for me, like my family always cemented how like important education was. I mean, to the point where, like, my father, for example, Haley, started the first refugee camp schools,
Wow.
like ever, like in Tanzania, in Nyarugusu refugee camp specifically. But while like imagine, right, hundreds, maybe millions of people flooding into, like running from a war, flooding into, going crossing a river, a lake.
Mm.
Crossing a lake, going into Tanzania, and then just dumping them into basically a jungle once they're being processed by the UN or the Tanzanian Immigration Services, trying to figure out where to even place refugees. So you're in this jungle, there's tents and stuff, and kids are unsupervised because school's out. There's no school.
Right.
There's like war going on. Who's gonna be teaching? Uh,
Mm.
And so a lot of people started to just basically start organizing, trying to figure out like, okay, what do we do? And like things get real really fast. Like I said, like, so by the way, Haley, I'm like this is about to get a little serious.
No, please. I appreciate your vulnerability and I appreciate, you being willing to open up and share this because I think it is a large part of your story and why you think empathy matters so much. And I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah, so basically what happened was in that refugee camp early on, I was still very young, maybe like very young. There was kids again, the young kids don't have anything to do. You start wandering around, you hang out. That's all you basically do. And there was, death that happened of a young boy who drowned in the river because, there was no supervising adults and,
Mm.
basically had nothing to do. And so you go look for fruits or you go to the river and wander around and that's kind of what you do. So once that happened, my father kind of saw that like we needed to do something. The UN didn't have any schools. And like so he rounded up basically a few of his friends and they cut basically just a plot of land, start cutting, taking out grass, cutting trees, and they made that the first school so that kids can have a place to go and like not just be supervised, but also learn because of how important education is. And so like that's the kind of, cloth that I'm cut on, right? Like my dad became like the principal there, started teaching. My family, on my mom's side, also my grandfather used to be a school principal. So I come from a family of a lot of educators, and through that, my dad starting that first school really kind of showed like how not just important education is, but how it is to helping the youth stay safe. You know what I mean? Like that became a safe space for a lot of the youth that were living in refugee camps. So for me though, as I was growing up, I didn't see like although yeah, there was poverty and that's real. It's 100% real. I also saw the other side, which is like how smart these kids, how smart we were, honestly. It's speaking three, four, five languages by the time you're like 5, 6, 7, 10 years old. You're picking up so many different languages. Um, and so all these things, like I was like, like especially for me, like you get to watch and see, because you have to have a comparison in order for you to even sometimes know the position that you're at, right? So
Mm.
for us, that comparison was the window screens of TVs where we got to see, the American kids on computers, microscopes. I'm like, wow,
Right.
they're, changing the world out there. So, but again, it wasn't like I was excited about that possibility. I was excited about that opportunity. And I also knew that like if we also had the same kind of resources, we'd be doing the same kind of level of stuff. And so like I kind of was very passionate about like, wow, if I ever go to America, like, there's no way, right? Like there's no way America is letting students fall through the cracks.
Mm.
There's no way America's letting students stay behind. There's no
Mm.
way. I was imagining innovative schools, full of engaged students, and so and amazing food, by the way. The lunch always is fire. Uh, but anyway, so for me, it was kind of this like coming to America finally in 2010 after, spending 13 years in the refugee camps. So after that, when we finally were able to get a resettlement here, um, it made I was able to kind of see a different world than I imagined of
Wow.
education here. It was really the same, teachers are in the front, students are in the back, and honestly, like more same in many different ways. Like, for example, for us, like we had a lot of educators who are from like Burundi teaching kids who come from Rwanda, Tanzania, Uganda, Somalia. So you had also educators there in refugee camps who were teaching kids who are coming from so many different perspectives and languages and all the stuff. And they also had to be culturally responsive.
Right.
So from that perspective, when I came here, it was also seeing like, especially I started in ELL classes, and that's what I meant like by teachers who really made a difference in my life. I was so lucky to have one of my teachers, Mrs. Klemper, be, you know, the one that really took me in, and she was able to see my potential right away to tell you that like I was so excited to get out of ELL because I was so bored. Um, like I always thought that, hey, let me learn English because I came here, I didn't know any English, but I already knew I could already speak almost five languages.
Incredible.
So, but you come here and the schools really didn't know what to do with that. I don't think they even ask, or like even if they knew, they wouldn't even, I don't think, know what to do with that asset, right? So like I'm trying to say like I came with so many different assets and things that I could have used to be able to help me continue learning, but I started to see that the teachers that truly saw me for who I was accelerated my learning. So I had one of my teachers, Mrs. Klemper, say, "Hey, I see you're really trying to learn English. So in order for you to really like do this, you should be talking to more students." So she just encouraged me, like, "Hey, you know, um, don't go and just hang out with, other students that speak the same languages as you. Like, go hang out with students who are speaking English, and you'll start learning it faster." Because I was motivated to do it. And so I started doing that. And then the next incentive she gave me, because her co-teacher, Mrs. McGurl, ended up winning Teacher of the Year that year. So she came to me and she's like, "Hey, DM, instead of me writing this speech, like you've been working so hard, instead of me writing this speech, like I know you've done so well in reading, you've done so well in writing, you are doing so well in speaking. So why don't you write the speech for that, once, for at the ceremony for Teacher of the Year for Mrs. McGraw, and if you deliver it, then I will take you out of ELL."
Mm.
Right. What? That's a bargain. What? Say less. I
Yeah.
was I was so happy, but I was so nervous because hey, I've never in a speech. She's like, yo, just write it, come back, I'll review it, and just talk about, because Miss McGraw was also really amazing. And so I was able to write this pitch, and I remember her husband, like, because my family didn't even have a car, like we had basically nothing as we came to America. I did like most of this I did this was like still almost a year in. We're still a year in right now. So her husband picks me up. We go, he gets me my first ever kids meal at McDonald's, which I didn't even know what to order. I didn't even know what McDonald's was. But he picks me up the kids meal. It came with a toy. I was like, damn, food that comes with toys. That was a new experience. Um, and then, dropped me off. I delivered my first speech, but I was able to do it, and I got a standing ovation.
Wow.
That unlocked it. I was like, whoa, whoa. I was like 13, maybe 14. So
Hmm.
I was like, oh my gosh, this is something. I didn't really know where I was gonna ever take that, but her believing in me and her giving me that opportunity was like honestly meant everything to me because she pushed me, she challenged me, she knew exactly who like where my mindset was in order for her to put even the right incentives in front of me for me to be able to like learn, like not on a standardized test way, truly a way in which you can hear how clear I speak. You can even hear my accent.
Mm.
Like that's the difference between like her teaching from the heart, her encouraging me, her saying, "Hey, you need to be speaking to people, not just all those maneuvers she was making, those decisions that she was making, understanding my mindset, understanding my background, what my interests were." Like it was those moments that really helped me actually be so articulate today, where I know so many other friends, not just friends, but like and not like a lot of people that go like that come here even in kindergarten and still struggle with English. And so for me it was a huge testament in like how she changed my life, and I was able to take that really like to say, how can I help other Mrs. Klempers out there who are working so hard to try to do this kind of work?
DM, you shared a lot of powerful anecdotes here about both your journey to the United States, your journey abroad, and also the power that education has on changing lives. And it really makes me think about the Mrs. Klempners of the world and the work that all of us are doing. But I want to just highlight that you're really living the truth of the tool that you're creating, which is really focusing on translating empathy into actionable data for teachers and for educators in general. So you're living this truth because you so clearly have highlighted that the really the power of your own path, you love to see it replicated in others. And that is empathy at its finest. Talk to me a little bit about how translating empathy into actionable data, how difficult it is, and what the goal is of this work.
Yeah, it's been really interesting because, as we've been doing this work, working with teachers and researchers, it's changed, but it's also stayed very, very, very firm. And all of it continues to be grounded in student-teacher relationships.
Right.
I mean, the more that like a lot of I always kind of say the before any like notebooks is opened, before any before the teacher starts teaching something, like when I go into class and I sit down, the first thing I'm thinking about, the first decision I am making is whether I belong there.
Mm,
Simply. I'm gonna look around, I'm gonna look at my peers, I'm gonna look at the teacher, I'm gonna check out the teacher. Do I belong here? And imagine, for example, me when I was living in North Dakota. So barely anyone, like also look like me.
right.
So like that decision, right? That decision leads right into engagement, leads into sometimes behavior, how I'm gonna show up, right? Leads into how the teacher might now even start to perceive who I am. And so I would say like sometimes I come in with bias, maybe everybody comes in with bias, but Rumi has this, poem that I love so much, which, maybe I might butcher, but it kind of goes some like, um, beyond, good and bad, right? There's a field. I'll meet you there. And for me, it kind of encompasses like beyond differences, beyond all these like like me going into the class and like, oh, like beyond all that is all these shared similarities and experiences that everybody brings into the classroom. And if we can all be empathetic about each other, to try to understand each other, then we can start to build spaces and environments where kids feel like they belong. And when kids belong, they engage, and they engage very, very deeply, very respectfully, and they actually have research that shows that sometimes this even can increase engagement by 30 times when teachers are able to actually connect with their students. And so a lot of it is very grounded in research. And so the hardest part of translating empathy into actionable insights for educators is being able to actually represent the voices of so many diverse students, right? And so many needs that they have because they're so different, into something that a teacher can do now, which is kind of like, what I believe a lot of, a lot of a lot of I believe like a lot of ed tech is trying it can try to do, which is like, what can I do now? And like we're providing the now, but we're also thinking about long term. Like building relationships shouldn't be just a thing you're doing on the first week of school or the first day of school. It's something that should be done all year long. And I believe that a lot of schools, kind of do like the climate surveys, which are usually, maybe once or twice a month. I mean, once or twice, like per semester. And so it just kind of like doesn't really have the daily realities and the things that are actually happening. But also a lot of like schools have also social emotional learning frameworks that don't give kids the capacity to be able to really show that, yes, you know, like for example on Castle, whether students are self-aware, whether students are socially aware, whether they have good relationship skills and all the other competencies that are on there. Like in order to be able to look at that, we can't just like send out a survey to say, do you have the skill, or asking the teachers whether they have that. I feel like that's something that is built over time, and a lot of students, especially who are like in a lot of these different communities, whether they're online communities, in-person communities, student clubs, they're already exhibiting a lot of these, a lot of these soft skills. And by being able to like ask them, like, not just like directly, but really working with students over time to be able to understand how they're thinking about, friendships, um, how they're thinking about engaging in school, how they're thinking about, like, whether they even have pride, to be in that school. Do they have Wi-Fi at home? It's like those kinds of little things that shows, again, what we're trying to do is like help the schools prove to students that they care. Because once the students have the feeling like, okay, truly, this teacher, this school actually cares about me, then the students are being able to given a safe space in their head to be able to actually engage.
First of all, I love the quote by Rumi. I am a huge Rumi fan, so I'm really glad that you shared that. But I could not agree more. Having been a teacher myself and knowing what it means to see a student for who they are and who they want to be and what they want to achieve is so valuable. And it takes a ton of work, especially in education when people come from all different backgrounds and teach students from all different backgrounds. It is not something that happens naturally and that doesn't require upkeep and continued learning and continued focus on a variety of topics, including geopolitics, race, religion, ethnicity, the climate of the world. It is so important to keep that centered in an educator's work. And I speak like from years of working as a person in schools that it matters so deeply. And you're a testament, you're saying it yourself. It matters so deeply that you felt seen so you could feel safe and you could belong. The world is changing a lot, and schools today in America, like you said, they aren't perfectly solving an education crisis as you
Yeah.
thought they might be. So, what's your hope for education in the United States in the next 10 years?
My hope is that we start to listen to students because the big companies are. They're listening to the youth and they're adapting, and education is not. Um, and I think it continues to stay at a detriment that student voice and student-centered learning, although, right, like it's becoming more and more talked about, it's becoming more and more centered. But I feel like we can definitely do a lot more to involve students in their own journey, to give them space to truly show who they are, because in the age of AI that's coming up, it's going to be even more important for kids to find better ways to differentiate themselves
Yeah.
and why, they're different than the AI bot and the creativity that they bring. Like, we cannot be able to extract those creativity. Like, how can we help? Like, for example, when I was going through school, I learned DJing, I was doing videography, photography, I was doing design, 3D design, like all that meant sometimes, Haley, like I was that C student, you know. Uh,
Right.
I was the C student, and like, because I was doing so many other things that interested me, and like we talked with, like, especially with ADHD, I didn't know at that time that I had that, but now looking back, you know,
I'm a late in life diagnosed ADHD also.
so I just being able to remember, like, wow, I can see how that showed up there, but I want to bring this to a point to where, like, through me doing all these things, even though I was that C student, Haley, I met this other, my other teacher that I want to tell a story about. Her name is Mrs. Strand. So Mrs. Strand was my physics teacher. And like I said, I was like a C student, right? So she got to know me really well. We had really good rapport, but I would always go to get help in her office hours. So every time I would go after, get to kind of like chill out with her, get to know, get some help on my homework. And one thing that happened was I got an opportunity to speak about this business idea I had, which is this
Mm,
idea, by the way.
yeah.
And I told her how scared I was, because I was like, I was still like, I was about to graduate. I was scared. I was like, man, I don't know. This seems like it's gonna be too much. And so, to cut the story short, she also offers, like, hey, I know you have this project that you've been coming to get help on. So if you decide to go and give out the speech about this business idea about school you have, I will replace that speech grade. If you go give the speech, I'll replace the project for your speech.
Mm,
That's how I started EnlightApp.
I love it. I love it. And it's teachers like that who are willing to think outside the box who make all the difference in kids' lives.
Look, here I am on the Forbes list. I called her, like I called her and she said something that was like, it's even making me feel like wow, so emotional. Cause like she said something that was like so deep to me, and she's like, yeah, she's like, yeah, we all already saw it. I'm glad you see it too now.
Oh,
You know,
that's
like it,
lovely.
like how can I help more teachers see what like what they saw in me, and help them steer these kids towards their dreams.
Mm-hmm.
It's because now they can do it. They truly can. We have AI that can build apps. We could, they can really go after these things now. And
Right.
so give them a chance. Like sometimes so you could see again how standardized tests didn't really come through. For me, even though yes, I was that C student, my university, by the way, that I graduated from, didn't even accept me.
Wow.
Whole story out of itself, right? Again, thinking about, I told you I was a C student, and the university I applied to, the university I went to, and now I'm on the board of entrepreneurship. I'm like, and so I went from not being accepted because of my grades to being on their board for entrepreneurship.
It's incredible.
So it's those kinds of things where like, wow, so where was my grades? And which, by the way, my grades that I had in high school, by the way, were
Hmm.
erased in one semester, Haley, because I went to community college for one semester, got a 4.0 and just transferred.
Wow.
So what did my high school grades give me? Nothing, because it was
Nothing.
erased literally in a semester. That's the reality.
Yeah. DM, you have so much emotion behind the stories that you share, and you're these incredible people that have stood beside you and believed in you. I appreciate how much, credit you give to them, but also credit deserves to be given to you as well for the hard work and the persistence and the dedication. When you spend time talking to teachers today, what's something that stands out for you as you listen to them share about the current situation in schools, the students that have been really struggling in a post-pandemic world? What stands out to you the most?
They're trying. They're
Hmm.
trying. And, you know, it's honestly incredible to see because, and they're not just trying, but they're adapting really well. And they're being asked and they're being placed. There's like expectations that are being placed up on them that sometimes like that this one teacher we're talking to, she's like, I I'm trying to figure out whether I should be checking in on my students' mental health, whether I should be like doing their interests, whether I should be planning engaging lessons, whether I should be doing like, and so it's so many different things that are layered on top of that, plus like writing IEPs. And so they're busy and they're trying.
Yeah.
And like what what we're hearing that they're missing and the big gap is that there's another big push again of like you have to build relationships with your students, but they don't have the capacity to keep it going beyond the first week of school.
Mm. So I'll close us out with what advice you would give teachers who are starting their career today, knowing all that you know and all that you've experienced. What would you tell them?
I would say that the biggest and most important thing that you could do for your students is to truly understand the experiences and the assets that they bring into your classroom. Um, when you get to understand that, you can truly, truly make magic with with our minds, and I'm a big testament of that. And so like there's many refugees or immigrants and even students here in the US who are ever more lonely now than ever, who are yearning for mentors. Like, I believe that's that's the role that, I believe a lot of teachers who are coming into the education field in the future is going to be mentors, facilitators, and guides. Because the world, the youth needs it, because right now a lot of students are starting to go towards AI for help, and I believe the human touch definitely is still the most relevant thing, and COVID was able to actually prove that to us. And so if we can continue down the path of providing educators who are full of empathy to be able to actually guide the next generation towards their dreams, now they can create anything. And so, um, you know, be a part of that.
DM, I love it. Thank you so much for sharing your story and bringing so much heart to this work. It is incredible to hear everything that you're building and everything that you dream. So we're really grateful you came on the podcast today.
Thank you so much, Haley. I appreciate you. And shout out to Rita, which, we appreciate her very much. And, the work that she's also doing in this space. And also just for connecting us, honestly. I really appreciate that. So shouts out to her. And hopefully I get to see her soon.
And thank you to Rita and thank you to everybody for tuning in today.
Thanks for listening to the Learning Can't Wait podcast. If you like what you heard, please rate, review, and share this episode. Be the first to know when we have a new episode by subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or have a suggestion for an episode, email us at podcast@fullmindlearning.com.